Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I am pretty pumped to get today's show started. I have in studio with me Bob Omer. He is with Defy Ventures Colorado, the executive director. How are you doing, Bob?
I'm doing well, Alex. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us. We're super excited to be here today.
Yes, we're super excited to have you. I also have two other guests in the room here. I have Tom Wyman. He is with Building Venture. He is the operating partner there. But more specifically, and to the show, he is a volunteer with and an advisory board member of Defy Ventures Colorado. And I also have Ronnie Madrid, who is an entrepreneur in training. So how are you gentlemen doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for having us, Alex.
Yes.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. We're so happy to do this. So Defy Ventures Colorado is a really awesome business entity. How do you define what you do?
You know, it's an interesting question because we look at things, started with the basic premise, working in the prisons, that we're all ex-somethings at the end of the day, right? And the aspect of, you know, being ex-somethings and being a community, our focus from a programming standpoint is to use entrepreneurialism to go into prisons and to give the men and the women in the prison system, for many of them, a legitimate first chance, but to give them second chances, to use economic opportunity to reduce recidivism and allow them to relocate back into their communities upon release.
Awesome. So that is, I think, one thing that we're seeing more of, right? People working on this problem that recidivism has been an issue for many years,
right.
Really. I like to think that a lot of people tend to feel comfortable when you end up in the prison system, especially if you start at a young age with, you know, juvenile delinquency, and if you're in and out of the court system a lot, it starts to feel like home. You have a camaraderie with these other guys or women that are also in the juvenile area with you, detention, or, you know, when you get into a prison, it's almost like a secret society, a bit army-like, if you will. That's kind of been my take on it. And so once you get out, you don't have your people anymore. And so going back in is easier, I think.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that in terms of, you know, how we see it from a programming standpoint and working from the outside in is that, I mean, listen, there's no shortage of prisons in any U.S. state, right? I mean, in Colorado, we have, I think at this point, 20 state-run prisons, 3 private prisons. You know, recently, the new governor came in, put his budget to the legislator, and, you know, noted that as a contingency, they're thinking about reopening a previously shuttered prison down in Canyon City. And so, you know, the aspect of recidivism and the aspect of a continuing kind of door of people coming out and going back in, you know, there needs to be a different approach of how to solve that. And I think that was what a lot of Defy Ventures Colorado was born out of, was that simplicity of saying, you know, well, all of us here in the community can come together to solve this. And for Defy Ventures Colorado, it's that community piece that really makes it, I think, special in terms of what it tries to do in the facilities.
Awesome. I love that. I love hearing that. And community is a big deal when you're dealing with any sort of business. You need your community surrounding you in order to get to that next step. And so having these volunteers come in and help and see why people end up back in the prison systems and how we can help them get out, it's a good deal of work you're doing there.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, in 2018, I think at last count, we'd taken somewhere around 330 volunteers into the 2 prisons we operated, Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility in Ordway, Colorado, and Colorado State Penitentiary in Canyon City. Most people are like, well, where's Ordway? And I describe it as go all the way out to Lyman and drop an hour south, and there's Ordway.
Wow.
You know, we don't put our prisons anywhere close to the metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that volunteer piece has been really, it's the secret sauce of this program. It's the ability to bring in volunteers like Tom, like the other, you know, you used a great term, army of volunteers, because that's really what comes together around this program, are like-minded people who want to come in and in many ways impart their expertise, impart their, you know, how they live their lives, things we all face, share stories about perseverance, grit, various things like that, business ideas. But what we find is it's a mutual kind of connection. Our volunteers get equally out of the process what they put into it on that in-prison coaching, mentoring, and that sort of thing.
Would you agree with that statement, Tom?
I think on the give and take side of things, I'm probably on the winning end of that. I mean, it's sort of a cliche thing to say, but really it's when you leave prison, everyone I've ever talked to, volunteers, when you leave prison, you're in a Defy fog. I call it a Defy Colorado fog for like 2 or 3 days where you just, the whole thing circles in your head and you keep thinking about it. And you get to see a whole side of the world that most people don't get to. And it's a privilege.
I love that you said that it's a privilege. So I want to talk about specifically what you do and actually how we got introduced.
Sure.
So Colorado Business Roundtable President Jeff Wasden went to one of your events that you have.
He did.
Where people come into the prisons, and one of the things that he mentioned was everyone stood in a line. Mm-hmm. And if you had broken a law at any point, you were supposed to take a step forward or a step back. Mm-hmm. Right, and so it was one of those, and so, just certain things, and one wrong thing, if you'd gotten caught doing that, you could be in the exact same situation as an inmate, mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
And I think that brings it close to home of how easy it is to fall into being in prison.
Sure, and I think that, so I know we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the program later on, but, the event Jeff initially came to was a business coaching day that we had at Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility. Very top level. To graduate from the Defy program, among many other deliverables, are entrepreneurs in training, what we referred to as EITs. They have to pitch a for-profit business. That is ultimately the capstone event at the end of the 8-month program. And at the midpoint, at the 4-month point, we have a business coaching day where at Arkansas Valley we brought in 50 community volunteers. We are very fortunate to have Governor Hickenlooper and former Director of Corrections, Rick Ramish, in attendance with us. And Jeff was one of the 50 judges, and our entrepreneurs in training pitched their businesses. And part of that, Defy Ventures Colorado is very based upon what I call kind of the soft side of humanizing back to that point that we're all ex-somethings at the end of the day. And doing that, as Ronnie can attest to, how the classes start, the aspect of, creating empathy and compassion amongst, the various stakeholders in this program. One of the events at the Business Coaching Day is called Step to the Line, and it's very much what you think. There's 2 lines, one going down the gym made up of our entrepreneurs in training, and the other side, about 5 feet apart, are all the community volunteers. And it's a facilitated exercise, which there's many variations of this people do in the community, but ours is very focused of people understanding there weren't a lot of decisions for some of us that really separated being on the inside of the facility or being on the outside of the facility. And I think many people who go through that exercise leave it with a, almost an insight of saying, wow, I never looked at it from that standpoint, that perhaps we're not that different at the end of the day, and that we can help each other to come together, change lives, and also end this cycle of mass incarceration.
Exactly. Well, and Jeff was so intrigued by this. He came back into the office that day, and his mind was completely blown. He just was blown away, and he talked about it for days. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it clearly does have an impact. Obviously, this had enough of an impact on you, Tom, to want to stay and volunteer and be on the advisory board. So talk to me a little bit about your journey with Defy Ventures Colorado.
Yeah, I first heard of it from a blog post that Brad Feld had put up there. And he talked about his experience in Defy, and he talked about it being sort of a transformational experience, and he put Bob's email address at the bottom of the post. So Bob and I had wound up having coffee together, and it sounded, and then I met with Bob and Stacey, and before the next step was I went to Arkansas Valley, and they have weekly classes, and I was a speaker for one of the classes, and was sort of talking about my experience as an entrepreneur, some of the things that I learned, maybe shared some of the things that went right, and definitely shared some of the things that went wrong that I wish I had a do-over on, and just sort of what it feels like to be an entrepreneur and navigating that ambiguity and all that. And yeah, you walk into prison with a certain sense of nervousness, right? I've never been in there before, and you certainly trust the whole program, but at the same time, it's out of most people's comfort zones. It was out of my comfort zone, and you walk into this room, and it is a bunch of people who look really happy to see you and really happy to come over and shake your hand and introduce themselves to you. And there's lots of smiles, and there's lots of enthusiasm, and not sort of this, the walls that we sort of have between people as we talk, it all sort of falls away, and it's just this very human, very honest interaction. And so I got up there and did a little bit of my talk for like 20 minutes, and I went into this question and answer session. And that's when I realized that in preparing for the whole talk, I'd completely sold these guys short. Like, the questions were so sophisticated and insightful that I just realized, wow, there's a lot in this room. I was telling Bob that I think one of those light bulb moments was we were talking about different ways a company could get funded, venture money or friends and family, angel, whatever. And somebody asked about, well, what about a bank loan? And I realized I never really dealt with bank loans before as an entrepreneur. And I kind of started to answer, and I had to admit, this isn't something I have a lot of experience with. And this guy shot his hand up in the back row, and he's like, excuse me, Tom, with my first company, I got it started with a bank loan, and I could speak to that if you'd like. And then he went on and gave this whole great explanation of what it takes to get a bank loan. And I was like, all right, this guy just saved my bacon. But, it was that level of sophistication that was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another great question that was actually probably the hardest question I got was, guy sitting next to me said, hey, I've never really had a job like that before. Do you have to shave every day?
That's a great question.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
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 And I'm from the generation where the answer is, yeah, you shave every day before you go to work.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, actually, most of the people I work with don't look like they shave every day. Maybe you don't have to shave every day. And at the end, and the funny thing is, Stacey, who runs the in-prison program, she was the one that answered it, and that's not something she ever has to worry about, but she had the better answer for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But, just the honesty of those kind of questions, like, hey, I don't know, I've never really done this before. Do you have to shave?
Right.
It was just sort of indicative of how everyone sort of felt like they had permission to be themselves. And
yeah. And there are no stupid questions when it comes to starting a business, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
There just are no stupid questions when it comes to that. But that's a great, relatable one, and I'm sure it was one to you that caught you completely off guard.
Yeah. It seems like it should have been the easiest question of the day, and I had no answer for it. Yeah.
But I think that's that, just to jump in, that's that simplicity of the program demonstrated, right? I mean, the way the program is created, we have very good curriculum that runs over the 8 months. The curriculum's delivered through video as well as written materials, but it's back to that point of the volunteer engagement, the simplicity of bringing the volunteers in and being able to humanize and to answer those sort of questions, right? I mean, those are questions that to you and I might seem very obvious, but to someone who's been in prison for a long period of time, those are one of many worries they have when they're seeing a release date and coming back out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ronnie, I want to talk with you as an entrepreneur in training. What were your initial thoughts when you first saw these group of people come in? How did that go?
I really wasn't sure what to think at first because we've never had to deal with anything like that before. A lot of times people come, like I grew up in the system, and I spent a lot of time in the adult system as well. So you get these people who come in and they're like, oh, we want to help you and we understand and this is what we're, but it's like a one-day thing. It's a job to them and they really don't care. But these guys, they would come in week after week after week and they would remember, like they would seriously remember who you were. Ronnie, you were the dad, and you know, they just connected with you and they wanted to connect with you and they went out of their way to help you. So it kind of threw me off at first a little bit, but I was very receptive to it because it's something that I wanted to pursue. I wanted to get away from the lifestyle that I once was engaged in, and these people were here to help me. I feel like the network that I've acquired through Defy Ventures, I couldn't pay all the money in the world to get it because, and the things that I learned was just amazing. The curriculum with Defy Ventures it's kind of hard, but it's just hard for yourself because you have to look at yourself and you have to really be honest with yourself in order for it to work. A lot of people, you can go through it and you can wing it and you can make the answers work for, you know, our facilitators. But if you really want to get something out of it, you really got to put your time into it. And there were times where I would be in my room for, you know, 2-3 hours a day really thinking about it, trying to figure out, okay, is this the right answer? You know, and any answer would have been the right answer, but is it the right answer for me, the way the program's set up? I think like the first 2 books are just focusing on yourself so you could realize, that's what I got out of it anyways, so you could realize exactly where you were, where you are, and where you absolutely can be if you want to continue on a path to do better. So,
how was that thinking for you, that realization? There was a moment quite clearly that you were like, I'm done. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out of here. What was that like for you? Was it like, you know, that kind of moment? Or was it slowly through clarification through reading these books? How did that go?
It was kind of like, I was there before Defy came around. Okay. I had already made up my mind to walk away from the life. Like my whole world was completely destroyed. I hit rock bottom. I lost my wife. She passed away, our kids were separated, and I was trying to get home to my kids, so I had walked away from the gang life, from the drug life, from everything, and started to do things on my own. And I had a really bad past in the penitentiary. And when I spoke up and stepped to my case managers and everybody and was like, look, I'm not doing this no more. This is not the path that I want to be on anymore. They were like, yeah, right. And that goes back to, you know, the volunteers coming in. You know, we never expect that from anybody, to come in and actually believe in us without even knowing us. And these guys took it at face value. When they came in, they were just like, okay, these guys are here, so they're here for a reason, because they want to be here. And all of us really were. Yeah. But when I tried to approach, you know, staff in DOC to tell them that I wanted to change, they just didn't. I had to put the work in. And when they started to see, that's when it started to get better for me. And I kind of lucked out with Defy. I was supposed to be on my way out of CSP when Defy's class was starting, because I had just graduated a second chance program, the I Live program, and I was supposed to be transferred out, and I had to write the associate warden and the warden and Intel and everybody and begged them to please let me be a part of this class. I actually missed the first day, and when I came back, it was amazing. It changed my life. It seriously changed my life. That
is awesome. And 2 clarifications: Defy Colorado, because there is a national chapter, and DOC being the Department of Corrections.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure there. Yeah, so is it fair to say that, and you've mentioned this twice now, these volunteers hearing you and really listening to you and putting faith in you, is it fair to say that that was kind of the first time in your life that you had somebody sit down and say, I'm here?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, you know, they laid down with us and they were like, what's up? We're here. It sucks down here, but we're here too. You know, not really saying like it sucks, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, we're on the ground here with you. And, you know, whenever you want to stand up and, you know, take that first step, we'll take it with you. And that meant the world, not only to me, but to everybody. To see Bob and Stacey and everybody coming, they always brought somebody. And we couldn't wait. I couldn't wait all week. Tuesdays was our classes, and I couldn't wait all week to go back to class just to get there.
Oh.
And we would go in, do our bear hugs, and it was just awesome. All the whole year that we did it was amazing.
I
couldn't
love that.
wait.
That's so exciting to hear, because to be quite honest with you, as many college classes as I've taken and all through high school and stuff, I don't feel like I've ever felt that way about a class. And so that's awesome that you got that opportunity and to be able to connect with people. So where are you now? How's the how are you doing on the outside, so to speak? Is that, I hope that's an okay term.
No, yeah, no, absolutely,
Okay.
it's fine. I'm currently in a halfway house in Jefferson County, and it's slow, but it's honest, and I'm super excited about life. I got a 5-year plan. I know, like, in 5 years I'll be a millionaire, and I'll have like my own little stuff going on. I'm gonna have a yum, fleet of trucks and clothing line and all kinds of different things. And actually this weekend I'm gonna be starting barber school, so I can get my license. I'm a barber, but I've never got my license, so they're gonna be helping me get my license. I'm doing some telemarketing work right now. It's honest work. It's like the 3rd job I've ever had in my life. So,
Yeah.
but I'm excited about it. Like, I got my first check, and I gave it to the halfway house to pay my rent, and it's slow, but I'm going.
It's a good
it's
feeling.
slow, but it's absolutely an amazing feeling, and my kids are so proud of me. My daughter was like, "Dad, you're really doing it," because I sold drugs my whole life, so my family was adamant about me getting out and doing what I was saying that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody had doubt, and that hurt. That hurt. There was a few times I've been out. I got out December 26th of 2018, and there was more than a few times where I was just like, "Oh man, this is terrible." And honestly, of course, I've thought about, can I, should I, would I? But that lasts about a half of a second, and then I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would never go back to the lifestyle that I once led. And honestly, it's because of the people that I have around me now. When I have questions about life, or like, these are all my mentors. These guys are all my mentors. I like them all the time. I'm thinking about letting everybody else down, and myself, but more so everybody else.
Well, of course, when you have people relying on you, it gives a whole nother level of needing to have that responsibility. I love hearing about your story, but we only have a few minutes left in this break, so I want to get a few things from you, Bob. One, where can I find more information about Defy Ventures Colorado, and how can I get involved if, as a business volunteer, what can I do?
For more information, go to our website, which is Defy Colorado, all one word, .org. So defycolorado.org. And also feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address is Romer, R as in Richard, OMER, at defycolorado.org. And to get involved is simply to reach out and let us know what your interest is, to come to prison with us, to come to a class, to come to an event, to work with people like Ronnie here in the community under our post-release program. There's numerous opportunities ranging from individuals to corporations. We work with a lot of corporations, which was exciting for us to come in here today to speak to this audience because, in many ways, this is a whole different conversation, but in today's world, the economy of 0% unemployment rate in Colorado, we've got employees here. We've got employees who are coming out with skills and who are coming out and ready to be hired. And so for us, getting corporations to understand that and working with them is a major focus.
Yes, absolutely. I love hearing that. So we're going to take a quick break. You are leaving us. We're going to get Stacey Putka in here to talk with us, but we will be right back here on Connect and Collaborate. Stay with us. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page. In the meantime, during this break, please visit defycolorado.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer. And if you are joining us at cobrt.com/live, you can clearly see I have a new guest in studio with me. This is Stacey Putka. She is also with Defy Ventures Colorado. So, Stacey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. And I get, once again, to reintroduce our guest that we had in the last segment. We have Tom Wyman, who is with Building Venture, but also on the advisory board of Defy Ventures Colorado, as well as a volunteer. And then we have Ronnie Madrid, who is an entrepreneur in training, and we're going to get to your business a little bit later in this segment. I'm excited to do that. But before we do that, we did kind of an overview of what Defy Ventures Colorado is. So let's talk about the ins and outs and how that program really works.
Absolutely. So I think the most special thing about our program and what we do is we're an inside-out model. So we start, obviously, with people inside while they're currently incarcerated, and then continue along the journey with them once they're released back into the community. So our in-prison program is 8 months long, and our program participants, or EITs, meet for 2.5 hours once a week. And they read curriculum from a textbook, they watch videos, they complete assignments, they do small group activities outside of the classroom sessions. And then when they meet once a week, we kind of go over everything that they've studied the week before. We bring in volunteers to help drive home some of the concepts, to help clarify some things, and have discussions around what the men in the program learned the week prior.
That's awesome.
And then our program is abbreviated by 3 kind of big events. So we have a kickoff event at the very beginning, where we introduce all of the new program participants to the organization and what we do. That piece is really focused on community and on restorative communities and on second chances. Then the second event is in the middle, and it's focused more on job readiness, because we believe in a very pragmatic approach to entrepreneurship. We want people who are in our program to be stable, have housing, be able to pay all of their bills through employment first, and then they begin to start their small business. So the midpoint program, or the midpoint event, focuses on resumes, cover letters, and personal statements, which is how we train individuals who are in our program to disclose their criminal history in a really neat way. So everyone that they know and interact with understands they have a criminal history, but they focus more on who they are now and who they want to be in the future. And then at the end, we have a graduation, which Bob hit on earlier, that the men in our program pitch a for-profit business at the end as kind of their final capstone assignment.
Awesome.
So that's the in-prison piece. And then we also have a post-release program where we help with that stabilization. We help people get jobs, we help them find housing, meet all of their basic needs. And then we have continued career readiness and career development workshops, mentoring, things like that. And we also have a small business incubator where the people who graduate from our program actually begin to start their small business.
That's amazing. So you are a nonprofit.
Yes, correct.
Yes. Okay. So I imagine that some of your money goes towards being able to help these small businesses. Talk a little bit more in depth about the incubator for me.
Sure. So we are, like you said, a nonprofit, and we rely completely on private donations. We don't have any state funding whatsoever. And we don't actually fund any of the businesses through the small business incubator with our money from our nonprofit. But what we do is set up the people who are in our small business incubator with pitch competitions with investors present at those pitch competitions. So we connect to our community, people who volunteer for us and who believe in what we're doing, who also have that investment potential. And we're relatively new to Colorado, and we've focused so far mostly on the in-prison program. And so we haven't gotten all of the business incubator kicked off yet, but that's our plan for once those things start to happen.
That's amazing, and I love hearing that. And regardless of where you've been in life, one of the big things about business is that networking aspect. You have to have connections, and I hate saying it. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
And so getting that connection is very important. So seeing that you've got these volunteers, not only mentoring in the capacity of, here, I can show you the ropes of what's going on, but also, hey, I know this person that's that I can maybe hook you up with. That's
Yep.
really awesome too.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. I love hearing that. Well, I'm going to hit back here with you, Tom. And we were talking a little bit on the break. So we talked about your first impression and when you walked in and you were kind of blown away by the sophisticated questions that you got. But let's talk about when people come back and they have their homework, right? What were you expecting and what did you see?
Yeah, so the first half of that afternoon, evening that I spent in prison was, yeah, I sort of did my presentation, like you said. And then the second half was going through the week's homework assignment. And I think, Stacey, you must have picked like 3 EITs to present the different pieces of homework from the previous week. And it's worth saying that, and Stacey, jump in because you can speak to this more than I can, but the homework is significant. It's not just like multiple choice fill in the blank. It's a lot of reading. And yeah, Ronnie, you can attest to this too. It's a lot of reading, is my impression, and a lot of thinking, and probably a lot of that kind of thing where there's not just one right question. You have to sort of think through scenarios and figure out what works for you. And so 3 different EITs got up and presented, and the first one got up and the presentation was just so thoughtful, and he clearly spent so much time on it, and he did such a good job of presenting to the group, but then pulling the group in and asking questions and suggesting, why don't you tell me what you thought, why did you think that, and all this. And then the second person, similar, and the third one had a full activity he'd created to underscore his point. And by the end of the whole thing, at first I was really excited for all of them and impressed, and by the end I just kind of wished I'd spent more time preparing for my presentation. It's starting to make me look bad. But it was so, that was my first time, and it made me realize this isn't just some rote jump through the hoops program. This is something where the questions required a lot of thinking about who you are, what your values are, in certain situations, how would you react? What would you do?
Yeah.
I think the other thing about the whole program, I mean, it came out in that, but just every time I've been to prison, is there's a lot of vulnerability in the room. In fact, it gets talked about. That's one of the core things, is that you have to make yourself vulnerable. And I got to think, and it's clear, it's there. You can feel it. But that's got to be a muscle that you don't exercise in prison very much. Like, you do not want to seem vulnerable, I would imagine.
Right.
And so being able to walk in a room.
Not at all. Not at all.
Did I get that right?
Last thing you want to be is vulnerable in prison.
And so I think it just impresses me that you can walk in a room and you spend all week not being vulnerable because you don't want to be, and then be able to flip that switch. And being vulnerable allows you to get more from the people around you and to give more to the people around you. But that's not an automatic thing, and it's impressive how these guys can do that, and I think it makes the program more successful and that's not something that anyone can say you have to do this. That's something that the EITs just have to do themselves, and they just do it, and that's impressive to me.
Yeah. Vulnerability makes you grow as a person, both emotionally and being able to open up. And if I can open up to you, I can get real feedback from you. And if you think my idea is going to go somewhere, right? That's awesome to hear. Is there anywhere else that you do any mentoring like this?
Yeah, I've done a lot of mentoring over the last several years. With some of the accelerators in the Front Range, a couple of the different Techstars accelerators, and Merge Lane, and Blackstone Entrepreneurs Network. So it's something that I enjoy doing, and this in some ways feels really like a different kind of mentoring, but it's using all those same skills to connect to people, and I guess it's when you're walking into the situation, it feels different, and then once you're in there, it's the same thing. You're just talking about business, and so yeah.
Well, and so I want to ask you, a lot of people probably have mentioned to you, there's so many ways you can volunteer and so many other entities that you can be a mentor at. Why stick with this program particularly?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's something that you don't think everyone necessarily gets. Why would you work with these people? And it's something that I think about, and it's when you go into prison and when you do it for the first time, I knew from a gut level, oh, this is good. I know I feel like I'm making a difference. I feel like I'm getting a lot out of it. I feel like these people are these are sort of my people. But it was at a gut level, and it was harder to articulate, and it was something that I wanted to be able to explain to people, and I wasn't sort of there yet. And I think, as I think about it, one of the things I say, I guess I have two versions of it when I tell people about it, and one of them is, well, it's been, Defy Colorado has really reduced recidivism rates for people who've gone through the program.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It affects sort of generational incarceration. Like, I think that the number is 70%. You have a 70% chance of going to prison if one of your parents is in prison.
Yep.
And so it affects that sort of thing. What is it, Stacey? 95% of incarcerated people in Colorado will be released into the community. So let's get the best version of them out there into the communities. And so it's easy to kind of cite statistics to justify why you do it.
Right.
But I think, and those are all good reasons to do it, but for me, it really is about the connections with the people in there. That's what keeps you coming back, right?
Yeah.
And I think knowing that, like Ronnie said, you sort of grew up in the system, and I would guess that more than half the guys that we talk to have been in the system or in prison before they're 18 years old, right? And that seems like a really young age to give up on somebody, especially when they probably spent well over half their life in the system.
18-year-olds are dumb. Let's be
Yeah,
frank.
seriously.
Yeah, as an 18-year-old, we're all a little dumb.
Yeah. And so I think those are the reasons that I do it. Because it's there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of when these people do get out, there's so much they can contribute to the community, as Ronnie totally demonstrates, right?
Yeah. And if I can add to that really quick,
please.
We have a lot of people, specifically at Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility, who have much longer to even life sentences. And serving them is one of my favorite things as well, because it really changes the culture within the prison. Because people who have shorter term sentences, and Ronnie, I think you can speak to this too, look up to those people with longer sentences. So if they are in a program like this and they're committing to change, they can be that mentor for people with shorter sentences who are currently incarcerated, and they create a safer environment for everyone who lives in the facility, for the officers who work at the facility, and for volunteers and people who come into the facility. So it really can change the culture in that way too, towards more restorative and positive than other options.
Wow.
Well, I mean, the great thing about Defy Ventures is that what it's doing with, the Department of Corrections right now is finally programs like Defy Ventures are showing the Department of Corrections that confinement is not the answer. It's about corrective behavior, and everybody in prison, no matter what, everybody wants to learn something. It's the last thing you want to be in prison is a dummy, because then you're vulnerable and then you're prey, literally.
Yeah.
So with programs like Defy, when you get alumni who have graduated, we were the first class, and the whole time while I was in Defy, everybody was like, how do I get in that class? How do I get in that class? Who do I got to talk to? That seems super amazing what you guys are doing. Just not only because the volunteers that would come up, but they would see how after being in class for a month or two, how we would start to interact with each other. And Stacey, you remember asking me about Kevin, how it was with me and Kevin.
Yeah.
I had a friend in there. He ended up becoming a really good friend of mine, but at one point in time, we were enemies. Like, if we would have seen each other in any other situation, it was on site, which was pretty much that it doesn't matter who's there, we're going to get at each other, and we're going to try to do exactly what we need to do for what we were doing. It was all gang-related stuff, but Defy brought us together, and he ended up becoming like one of my really good friends, one of my really, really good friends. But programs like that are what need to be had in the Department of Corrections, not just in Colorado, but nationwide, to lower the recidivism rate, simply because if you just lock people up and don't give them any type of programming, anything to prepare them for the outside, they're just going to go back to the exact same thing that they knew before. Right. And that's the great piece about Defy, that is they have an aftercare program when they get out. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm here, and Stacey and Bob and everybody, and Tom and Izzy. What's up, Izzy? They're super on it all the time, asking me, are you good? Do you need anything? What can we do to help you? Well, we have this resource for you over here. We have this and that means a lot to us, because when we begin to make the change on the inside, it only matters on the inside, because when we get out, we have parole officers, and I'm in a halfway house right now, so we have case managers, parole officers, everybody who just hears the same old drag from everybody else when we're like, oh, well, I did this, or this is what I want to do, because they just think that we're trying to run game on them. Mm-hmm. So when we actually have somebody to step out to, that's like, okay, I remember what you did. I know the steps you took to get here, and this is what we're going to continue to do. It actually helps keep you on the right path once you get out, and it makes you not want to go back to the dumb things that you used to do in life, because ultimately, we're the only ones who have to live with the choices that we make. They might affect, you know, my choices might affect Stacey and Tom and, you know, Bob, even you know, however, but I'm the only one who's going to have to go back and do the time if I mess up. You know, my kids are going to hurt, and they're gonna, you know, I'm all they have left, so they will ultimately hurt, but I'm the one that's gonna have to do the time. So it's all about choices, and to have such an amazing support system after going through, which is literally a war zone in prison right now, you know, to get out and just to have peace of mind and peace in my heart. I'm content now, even after everything that's gone on in this past couple of years. I'm content with where I'm at, and I'm super excited about where I'm going. I know that, I know I'm gonna be a millionaire. What you guys think about that?
That is beautiful. That is beautiful to hear. And you're right. The concept of, I don't know, actually giving some correction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
To prison instead of confinement, as you said. I guess I hadn't really thought about that concept, but you're right. That's what we do. We put people in prison and we push them away, and there's no correction being done. So thankfully we do have some programs out there like Defy Ventures Colorado. Yeah. I want to take a moment and let's talk about your idea. Okay. You mentioned Yummy Yum Yum, which sounds amazing, and I'm pretty hungry, I'm not gonna lie. So tell me more about this. What do you have in mind?
Okay, Yummy Yum Yum's coming soon. What it's going to be is a taco truck with authentic Latin cuisine. Just barbacoa tacos, tacos de lengua, tacos de ceviche, stuff like that. Anything that you get anywhere else in Denver, but mine is just going to be just so much better, because you're going to remember my name when you're going to be sitting at home and you're going to be hungry thinking about, what am I going to do? I'm hungry. And you're asking your friend, let's go get something to eat. What do you recommend? And they're going to be like, oh, yum. I remember this taco truck that I went to. Let's go down there. You're going to be able to look it up on the internet, or do like Uber Eats, stuff like that. I got a whole idea of what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to have Yummy Yum Yum girls. I'm going to do some marketing stuff with it.
I like it. That's awesome to hear.
Hats.
T-shirts, hats, socks, everything. We're going to...
Socks?
Everything.
Yeah. I love a good pair of socks. I'm not gonna lie.
Everything. Yummy Yum Yum's is gonna be the parent company for everything that I got going, because I'm trying to live my best life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
That's awesome. Well, and I imagine that you've got some great skills that have turned over, and you're going to be able to use those marketing skills, right?
Marketing, distribution,
customer development,
quality control, wholesale, retail, everything.
So what do you need? What's missing? Do you have a plan to get your truck? What are you
Yeah, I actually
looking
have
for?
just the funding, just time and money. That's it. You know, I'm fresh out. I got out December 26th, so you know, I'm taking baby steps to get back into life right now, which is fine. But
Yeah.
eventually, I'll get there. I know that it's going to cost about $7,500 altogether to get my truck going. I know I could get a truck for about $3,500, which would be a trailer. Actually, not just a big truck, but a trailer that I could hook up to my truck. About $1,400 in licensing and permits, and probably about another $1,500 just for my first month's supplies. And so it's just time and money is the only thing that, you know, I'm lacking right now, but it's fine. I'll get there.
Yeah.
I'll get there. I'm absolutely taking my time with this, because when it comes, it's going to be big. And I don't have the time for big right now. I'm trying to focus on me so I can get me right,
Yeah.
because if I'm not right, then none of it will be right. It won't last. I'm about longevity, so.
I love hearing that. That's amazing, and you're speaking from someone who has clearly been inspired by the program that you've gone through.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amazing. I'm super proud and feel privileged to be a part of it.
That is awesome. Well, I am looking for Yummy Yum Yum coming soon. I know you got a 5-year plan, you said, so
Absolutely,
I will
yes.
keep my eyes and ears open for that. Let's hit back here with you, Stacey, and I know we have some expansion coming.
We do. We're
Yeah.
so excited. So as Bob mentioned in the first segment, we are currently at Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility and Colorado State Penitentiary, which are both all male facilities. And in March, we're expanding into a women's facility called La Vista Women's Correctional Facility in Pueblo, Colorado. And we are so excited to have the opportunity to work with female entrepreneurs now as well.
Yes. So I guess, so are you only asking for male volunteers and then asking for females, or can anyone volunteer?
Oh, for volunteers, anyone can volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that female entrepreneurship is a super hot topic right now. It's very trendy and cool. So I think the more incredible female entrepreneurs we can bring to role model for the women who are currently incarcerated and who are entrepreneurs in training, the better. But there's nothing wrong with having a couple guys there too.
Oh, absolutely. Of course. Yes. Good mix there.
Yeah.
So I know that we asked for information in the last segment, but I want to make sure that people know where they can go to get more information. If I want to be a volunteer, if I want to, get my business involved,
Right.
what can I do?
Yeah. Well, if I can just really quick, the most common question that we hear from volunteers and people who get connected with us is, what value do I bring? What could I possibly do? You know, for me, I was a social worker and a mental health therapist before I moved into this role. And so I'll meet people who maybe aren't entrepreneurs and they say, what could I really do to impact this population? I've never start or run my own small business. And while bringing entrepreneurs is wonderful and they can speak to the very technical sides of entrepreneurship, anyone who has an empathetic and human mindset can come in and make a huge difference, because I think Ronnie talked about that a lot. Just interacting with someone and believing them when they say that they want to change, they want to do something different, they want to start this business, and having someone who believes in them is huge. So whoever you are listening, if you believe that, you can make a difference and you can impact these lives. And ultimately, hopefully we can all together put a small dent in mass incarceration. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. Bob gave his email address in the first half, which is R as in Robert, Omer, O-M-E-R, at defycolorado.org. You can also email us at info@defycolorado.org. A little easier to remember if you don't have a pen and paper in front of you. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all at Defy Colorado. And our website is www.defycolorado.org. So you just reach out to us, let us know you're interested in volunteering. Like we said earlier, we're expanding into La Vista. We have a ton of entrepreneurs who need mentoring, who need support. We have 67 who are currently in our program, and we're going to be expanding that by 30 when we expand into the women's facility. And I think you'll be surprised what you get out of it as well, as Tom talked about. So we need your help. We need your support. Volunteer with us. As I mentioned earlier, we have no state funding. We're all privately funded. So if making a whole day trip down to prison isn't something that's feasible for you right now, consider just donating on our website, please.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you coming in to talk with me today.
Thank you for having
be
us.
sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Again, visit defycolorado.org and keep an eye out for yummy yum yums. Have a great day.
Coming
Alex.
soon.